Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video we're going to be talking about a question that I got from Cheryl Baldry about immigrants and what I think about that. She was asking what I thought about the immigrants coming in from Central and South America, but also I guess she said that there's 100,000 from Afghanistan that are coming into America, and I have an answer for that. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video. If you end up liking it, hit the notification bell, and then make sure to leave all your comments because I like to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to refer back to something that I heard on Watcher Palmer's channel because and before this, I've always pretty much been against it, especially like illegal immigration. I'm for like letting people into the country. The thing about it that I don't understand is like, why are we not pushing just to allow more people to come in legally and make that happen easier, instead of like fighting for them to, just like come across the border, um, without us knowing who they are, without any documentation. Like, I don't know why that's so hard to do, or I don't know enough about it. Okay, so I may not have a very good opinion about that, but um, now the thing that I heard on Watcher Palmer's channel, he was talking about how the brethren were actually, I guess, not happy with Trump because essentially when it comes to immigration, we know that you know we know that the Nephites and, well, especially the Lamanites, that their ancestry is among the Native Americans and the, native inhabitants of both North and South America, and that it may actually be a good thing for them to be able to come here to the United States, um, possibly for gospel reasons. Um, that maybe it may be a good thing for them to come here as we prepare for the second coming. We know, or at least the majority of the church believes that Jackson County is going to be the place of the New Jerusalem, and we are told that the gathering place is wherever you are. So, for people in Estonia, that's the gathering place. For people in England, that's the gathering place. So, but even so, there may still be some benefit to some people coming in closer to where the New Jerusalem is going to be. And anyway, that's just an anecdote that he shared. I believe him, but I think that there actually may be something to it. I think that it may be important for those of Israelite ancestry to, well, we know that they're supposed to return to their homelands, right? Um, so, the Jews have returned to the land of Israel, and now Joseph is very much gathered in the Americas because of Lehi and his family, but also because of, Europeans that have come to America. We know that Joseph Smith was a pure Ephraimite, and so the implication there is that probably a lot of people from the British Isles have Ephraimite ancestry, and there's probably a lot more throughout Europe. So even though right now there's not a worldwide call to gather into Salt Lake City, and we're supposed to gather wherever we already live, that may be true for some people, and it may not be true for others. Maybe others are meant to still gather in these certain places in the United States and in Israel. Now, as far as the 100,000 from Afghanistan go, this is something I was going to bring up in a later video. My last video, I'm like starting a series, I think, looking into the Lost 10 Tribes, because there's a group of people in our church that believe that there is still right now, unknown to the world, a large body of the 10 lost tribes that are somewhere on the earth, or possibly in outer space, or underneath the ocean, just somewhere, sorry, somewhere where we don't know where they are, and that the Lord's going to bring them back, and it's going to be miraculous, you know. And I'm keeping an open mind, but if you watch my last video, I'm leaning more toward just the idea that probably that main body was dispersed up into Europe and North Asia, mostly when it's talking about the countries of the northern countries. Yeah, anyway, just go watch the video because I'm not going to go into all that here. But you know, what the heck was I even saying? Gosh, I'm so good at YouTube, you guys. I'm so good. I'm good with words. Okay, whatever. So anyway, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this series, and I was gonna go into all the different populations that identify with Israel. I remember a long time ago there was a Wikipedia article that I was reading that it just has like a big list of all these different little ethnic groups and small populations all throughout the world that believe that they have a link to Israel and that they're part of the lost 10 tribes. And one of them are the Pashtuns in Afghanistan. So I'm just going to talk about this here because of Cheryl's question. It may actually be a good thing that we have these 100,000 Afghans coming to the United States. I don't know how many of them are Pashtuns. Of course, I'm sure that the Pashtuns have mixed in with all of Afghanistan. I know that there's different kind of like ethnic groups within Afghanistan. But let's just get into it. Let's learn about these people. So this article from i24news.tv, surprising links between Israel and Afghanistan's Pashtuns. Okay, if you haven't heard of this before, then this will probably be really good. You'll be interested and maybe surprised. So since the fall of Kabul to the Taliban last week, life in the capital has become a challenge for many. Among those experiencing the difficulties of the takeover are many Pashtun, a large ethnic group consisting of more than 15 million people. All right, so 15 million people. That's a little bit under the size of the church right now, because I think that we're at 17 million, right? So we got 15 million of these people. Many served in the Afghan National Army, and both of the country's recent former presidents are Pashtun. Theories exist that suggest that the Pashtuns are descendants of the lost tribes of the Israelites, with some feeling connected to the Mediterranean state. Although most Pashtun are Sunni Muslim, some feel a strong connection to Judaism and to the theories about their Israelite origins. Israel anthropologist Professor Avigdor Shakan suggested that the lost tribes of Israel settled in Afghanistan following the Assyrian conquest of Israel in 856 to 732 BCE. He even suggested that we can find clues of Hebrew culture in the names of Afghan cities, such as Kandahar, which he claims is similar to the Hebrew expression, the mountain. Other theories note the similarities between Pashtun and Jewish names. And there's going to be a lot of those in these articles that we go over. I'm going to put all these articles down in the description below. They really make for a good read, and they're fascinating. In 2019, okay, so this is talking about, now we're talking about a guy that wants to remain anonymous. So in this article, he's going by H. Okay, in 2019, H made contact with Israeli right-wing activist, excuse me, Professor Hillel Weiss, who tried to promote a UN-like body based on the Torah laws named 70 Nations. Weiss even met H in Delhi, India, and exchanged thoughts about future cooperation. Okay, so this is a Afghan, one of these Pashtuns that believe that they're descended from Israel and that they're part of the lost 10 tribes, who reached out to this guy in Israel to talk about making a UN-like body um, named 70 Nations. And I'm not going to go into that too much. Um, just think of the quorum of the 70, but this is an idea within Judaism, the 70 nations. You have Israel and then the 70 nations. Um, all right, H doesn't dismiss the option of immigrating to Israel. If I had a visa, I if I had a visa, I would have moved to Israel, he maintained, but not as an asylum seeker. He also said he would not convert to Judaism, although he does feel a strong connection to Israel and to the Jewish people. We both have the same blood. We're B'nai Israel, he said, using a Hebrew term meaning sons of Israel or Israelites. Now, this is an interesting idea because even though these Pashtun people believe that they're descended from Israel, they're Muslim and they don't want to convert to Judaism. And I had the thought, I wonder if it's because they know somewhere within their souls, because they are Israel and they're from the North Kingdom, maybe they know that there's something off with Judaism as far as them having rejected the Messiah. Not that they believe that Christ is the Messiah, but maybe there's just something in their, you know, subconscious, their spiritual subconscious that knows that yes, we are related to the Jews, but no, we should not convert to Judaism. Maybe they're waiting for their time to accept Christ. I don't know, but I find that interesting. Another Pashtun Afghan who asked to remain anonymous is S, who now lives in Peshawar, Pakistan. Originally from Afghanistan, S has lived in different cities around the world and worked in the shipping industry. We can see Jewish symbols on his Facebook page. Israel is my country, he said. I am persecuted here because of my Jewish faith. So I guess this Pashtun is Jewish or practices Judaism. I would like to make contact with the Israeli authorities and start an immigration process, he said. Recently, the issue came landed. What? Recently, the issue came landed in the headlines when Israeli lawmaker Gabi Lasky from the left-wing Meretz party said that Afghan migrants should be let into Israel. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So you remember the conference before this one. So I guess April of this year. I think it was April this year, where Dallin H. Oaks was talking about within the church, we shouldn't have people basically shaming the other political party, right? And I think that was mostly directed at conservatives and Republicans within the church because we are the majority. And, you know, and some people kind of took that a little hard, right? Because it's like, what? Because it's no secret that typically the left and the liberals and Democrats, they're usually fighting for things that run contrary to doctrines of the church, right? But Dallin H. Oaks said that we need to be careful not to, like, you know, what would you say, like deride them in church, or like say that it's wrong to be um, of any political party, you know, because sometimes things may happen through another political party that may not happen in your own, that actually goes with the plan of God. And it just makes me wonder, you know, here you have Gabi Lasky, this leftist, that may actually be doing some good, because it may be that this is meant to happen. These Afghan migrants are supposed to come back to the land of Israel because of their Israelite heritage, because this may be part of the gathering of scattered Israel. Um, So, and yeah, Elder Oaks, he may have been saying that because of what Watcher Palmer was talking about, how the Brethren were concerned about Trump and the wall and cracking down on migration. Maybe, maybe we're wrong on that. Um, they're not, I don't think that, I know that they're not saying that. Um, it's kind of a sticky issue because I know that they've also said that we shouldn't break the law. You know, um, they came out with a statement. I don't know when, but it was with Utah. They were wanting to do something with their migration law, and the church came out and said we need to have compassion on those that are here. We don't want to split up families. At the same time, we encourage everyone in every nation to obey laws and whatever. So it's just kind of it's an interesting situation, but it may be that you know both political parties or all political parties can do some good and actually further the Lord's work. I'm not making a case for Democrats or liberals. I'm not one of those, but it is possible that the Lord can use them for good as well, occasionally. Sometimes. Um, the future is unclear for the Pashtun people, specifically for those who supported the previous regime. There is no way I'm staying in Afghanistan, said Age. He also mentioned that he is considering moving to Australia or Canada, but this crisis may also be a turning point in the relationship between Israel and Afghanistan, two countries that do not share borders, but may have more in common than many think. And that's an interesting thing right here, because if you have this sizable group of Israelites, right, a sizable portion of, or yeah, a sizable population of the 10 lost tribes, maybe the war in Afghanistan, you know, was supposed to happen. Not that the Lord would cause war, or well, that he would want war, or, but I mean, he can use, you know, bad things. He can use bad events and war and conflict and use it for good, right? Um, and maybe in this case somehow it was, I don't know, but it's interesting that this war happened in Afghanistan, where you have this population of, where it seems that you have this population of the 10 lost tribes, and now because of what happened and because of how we withdrew, and now the Taliban is taking back over. Now it's making people that would have normally stayed in Afghanistan want to go to places like Israel, Australia, Canada, and of course the United States. And maybe that's where they're supposed to go. Maybe it's time to come back home and to go where, you know, their promised land is with the rest of us um, that are of the covenant. So it's interesting. All right, let's move on to the next article here. Pashtun clue to lost tribes of Israel, and this comes from The Guardian. Okay, let me change the cursor here. Okay, um, that's not gonna. Okay, Israel Israel is to fund. Now this is in 2010, so this has already happened, and I think that I have an article here that's going to talk about this study that this is talking about right here. So Israel is to fund a rare genetic study to determine whether there is a link between the lost tribes of Israel and the Pashtuns of Afghanistan in northern Pakistan. Historical and anecdotal evidence strongly suggests a connection, but definitive scientific proof has never been found. Some leading Israeli anthropologists believe that all of the many groups in the world who claim a connection to the 10 lost tribes, the Pashtuns or Pathans, have the most compelling case. Paradoxically, it is from the Pashtuns that the ultra-conservative Islamic Taliban movement in Afghanistan emerged. Pashtuns themselves sometimes talk of their Israelite connection, but show few signs of sympathy with or any wish to migrate to the modern Israeli state. Well, that was back in 2010. Things have changed. The Assyrians conquered the Kingdom of Israel some 2,730 years ago, scattering 10 of the 12 tribes into exile, supposedly beyond the mythical Sambashan River. The two remaining tribes, Benjamin and Judah, became the modern-day Jewish people, according to Jewish history. And the search for the lost tribes has continued ever since. Some have claimed to have found traces of them in modern-day China, Burma, Nigeria, Central Asia, Ethiopia, and even in the West. No, just really quick, when it talks about Nigeria here, I could believe that because on my mission, I was in the Spain Barcelona mission, and just like there were so many migrants there from all over the world. There were a ton from Central and South America, Eastern Europe, some from Asia, and then there were also a lot of Africans. And so it seemed that we had, in terms of like Africans, we had the most success among people from Ghana and Nigeria. And those were actually two of the, was South Africa first? I don't know, but Ghana and Nigeria had two of the first temples ever in Africa. There's a lot of Christians there. Nigeria is actually, like in the north is where the Muslims are. That's like the Islamic region, and then the south is Christian. And but now we have a temple there. In fact, I think there's going to be two temples in Nigeria. But it's interesting that the church seems to have made the first headway into Africa in Nigeria and Ghana. And so yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there is Israelite blood there. Okay. But it is believed that the tribes were dispersed in an area around modern-day northern Iraq and Afghanistan, which makes the Pashtun connection the strongest. Of all the groups, there is more convincing evidence about the Pathans than anybody else, but the Pathans are the ones who would reject Israel most ferociously. That is sweet irony, said Salva Weil, an anthropologist and senior researcher at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. The Pashtuns have a proud oral history that talks of descending from Israelites. Their tribal groupings have similar names. Now, I think this is really cool, including Yusuf Zai, which means sons of Joseph, and Afridi, thought by some to come from Ephraim. Some customs and practices are said to be similar to Jewish traditions, lighting candles on the Sabbath, refraining from eating certain foods, using a canopy during a wedding ceremony, and some similarities in garments. And there's actually more similarities that we're going to go over. Some are more certain, among them Navras Ifridi, an academic in Lucknow University. That's a weird name. An academic at Lucknow University, himself a Pashtun from the Afridi tribe. His family traced their roots back to the Pathans from the Khyber Agency of what is today northwest Pakistan, but he believes that they stretch back further to the tribe of Ephraim. Pathans or Pashtuns are the only people in the world whose probable descent from the lost tribes of Israel finds mention in a number of texts from the 10th century to the present day, written by Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scholars alike, both religious as well as secularists, Afridi said. The implications of any find are uncertain. Other groups that claim Israelite descent, including those known as the B'nai Menashe in India and some in Ethiopia, have migrated to Israel. That is unlikely with the Pashtuns. Well, again, until recently. We're still on the one from 2010. Okay, now we're going to go on to the Jerusalem Post. Perhaps the Israelite spring is finally upon us. While the path to peace cannot lie solely in defense, it may lie in the active reuniting of roots and dispersed family trees. That is an amazing subtitle. This is prophecy fulfilled, right? Or at least the beginning of prophecy being fulfilled as far as these groups go. We know that with the restoration, Israel's been gathering back in, but for these other groups, that seems to be happening as well. It's starting to get interesting. So this is from 2018. Okay, let me change the cursor. Okay, the Jewish people see themselves as a people alone in the Middle East, but an emerging elephant in the room may change this mentality. How will Jews respond when they hear that the descendants of the 10 exiled tribes of Israel ended up in Afghanistan and Pakistan, today numbering at least 25 million? So I guess there's the 15 million in Afghanistan and maybe 10 more million in Pakistan, I'm guessing from what we read earlier, and haven't forgotten who they are. Recently, our organization, iTribe, polled almost 100 Pashtuns in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Almost all responded that they were told by their grandparents that they are called Bani Israel, the children of Israel. The Pashtuns have dwelt in rugged mountains of Afghanistan and Pakistan for thousands of years. Although Muslim today, they live by a code called Pashtun which greatly resembles Mosaic law. When Pashtun conflicts with the Quran, they follow Pashtun. Interesting. So it seems like they give more priority to their prior tradition or their separate tradition from Islam. For example, Muslims are permitted to eat camel, but many Pashtuns do not do so. Other Pashtun customs, which are not common among Muslims, but have a clear parallel in Jewish practice, include circumcision on the 8th day, lighting candles on Friday evening, Levirate marriage, and many others. Okay, here's some more interesting names. Names of greater Pashtuni tribes include the Reubeni, which hopefully you realize that sounds like Reuben. Gadi sounds like Gad. Ashuri, Asher. Ephridi, I think that would probably be like Ephraim. Shinwari, I'm not sure about that. Luwani, maybe Levi. And Yosef Zai, that would be like Joseph. It says it down here, which clearly resemble the tribes of Reuben, Gad, Asher, Ephraim, Shimon, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, and Yosef. The royal family of Afghanistan traces its origins to the line of King Saul of the tribes of Benjamin. These facts are not, gosh, what is going on with that? Hopefully you weren't watching that commercial that was just playing. That's awesome, Jerusalem Post. These facts are not new. The Bible mentions the Assyrians settling the lost tribes in Gozan, which is one of the names of the Amu Darya, a major Afghan river, identified as such by Rav Saadia Gaon. Medieval writings by Jewish travelers to Afghanistan mentions the Israelite origins of the Pashtuns. In more recent times, the connection between Pashtuns and Israel has been documented and discussed in documentaries by Simcha Jacovici, as well as books by Rabbi Eliyahu Avichai and Israeli President Yitzhak Ben Zvi. Recently, the internet has given us the ability to contact Pashtuns directly and do extensive research, which has confirmed the sources above. Enabled by modern technology, Pashtuns and Jews have already begun to network and dialogue. Daily exchanges are happening between Jews and Pashtuns in various forums. For instance, in a Facebook group titled The People of Israel's Jirga, Pashtuns and Jews, quiet in-person meetings are happening across the globe. Our organization, iTribe, is currently mapping out all communities connected to the lost tribes, including the Pashtun, in an online social network to create digital bridges between the dispersed exiles of Israel. And together, iTribe and the organizers of the Jirga are organizing what is hopefully the first of many Unite the Tribes conferences in Jerusalem this Thursday, February 22nd. So interesting that there's these groups like iTribe and Jirga that are actually trying to like reach out and I guess kind of like establish relations, and it'll be interesting to see where that may go in the future. But I think it's fascinating. Okay, here's another article from newslab.tribune.com.pk. So I guess that stands for maybe for Pakistan. I'm not sure. Okay. The two remaining tribes, Benjamin and Judah, became the modern-day Jewish people, while the search for the lost tribes has continued ever since. Verses may also say that one day the people of Judah will have their land. They will get in touch with the lost tribes and work together to unite, says Rabbi Rosenberg, who is considered to be one of the leading voices backing the reconstitution of a global Israelite family. That is really cool. Good job, Rabbi Rosenberg. It's like a movie script. And while watching the movie, I'd expect to see the people who say they're from the ancient tribes of Israel. Now that's happening. And we already know how that's going to end, how it'd look like, what we're supposed to do together. The whole world map has been set. It's about time to activate, says the rabbi. Okay, nonetheless, genealogy enthusiast Nadine Goldfoot says some DNA tests have confirmed a genetic connection between the Pashtuns and the Israelites. So I don't have a date on this article, but I'm assuming that this is probably after the 2010 article where they were about to do a DNA test. So this may be what that's referring to. Indian historian Dr. Navras Jat Afridi did a genetic study on the Afridi clan of Pashtuns in Malihabad, India. It was found that 650 out of the 1,500 members had DNA similar to genetic DNA found in Jews, writes Goldfoot, the author of Messages from a Syrian Jew Trapped in Egypt. So that's interesting. So it looks like there was possibly some confirmation through this DNA study that there is some similarity. Research shows a relationship between Pashtun and Jewish, in parentheses, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Mizrahi DNA, and also that Pashtun DNA is second closest, 68.1, to Ashkenazi DNA after Iranian and Iraqi Jews, 67.9. Wow. Most of this research used Yousafzai, Afridi, or Katak samples from Pakistan and India. Goldfoot wrote in a blog, Can Pashtun tribe of Afghanistan have Jewish roots? What DNA says. Rabbinic literature is full of direct and indirect references to the Jewish origin of the Pashtuns. And some leading Israeli anthropologists believe that of all the many groups in the world who claim a connection to the lost tribes, the Pashtuns have the most compelling case. That is really, really cool. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that's awesome. Um, there are scholars of the highest stature from almost every university in Israel, um, and the greatest rabbis of Israel are today aware that the lost tribes are in Afghanistan. Scholars in several universities, including Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University, and Ariel University, have written and are writing on the topic. And they all support this view, claims Rosenberg. Many Pashtuns proudly claim that they are Beni Israel, children of Israel. They have well-preserved genealogies to establish the genetic connection. It's a paradox, though, because they consider the term Yahud, Jude, or Jew, a reproach. And more ironically, the ultra-conservative Taliban, who have emerged from the Pashtuns, consider Jews their sworn enemy. And, again, that's interesting. I mean, I know that you've heard before that there was, enmity between Judah and Ephraim, and I don't know if like that just still kind of carries on today with these Pashtuns. They've like carried on that tradition, um, just like the Lamanites that carried on the tradition that that the Nephites had wronged them, and so there was just kind of like a generational tradition of um, hate or enmity between the two groups. So I find that interesting. I think it's interesting the implications for what's going to happen next and what is happening. It seems like maybe, I don't know, maybe the Pashtuns that are more, have the spirit with them more, maybe they're the ones that are migrating now or trying to migrate to Israel, United States, all these other places. And then the ones that are like the more Pharisee-like of them are, digging in their heels, and they're holding to that ancient hatred of the Southern Kingdom or whatever. I don't know. These are just my thoughts. Tell me what you think, but I find the whole thing really interesting. Okay, so that's it for that article. Here is, let's see, ohr.edu. I'm not sure what this is, but it's a rabbi that's responding to, I guess, someone from his synagogue maybe, or I don't know, but it's from Jeremy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where the question's coming from. It's coming from Jeremy. Dear Rabbi, I've heard that the 10 lost tribes of Israel may have gone to Afghanistan and that the Afghani people today are their descendants. They supposedly have Jewish customs like lighting candles on Friday and wearing a talit. Is this true? Dear Jeremy, when you think about the fact that Jews as a people are as ancient as the Chinese, you realize that by now there ought to be at least 1 billion of us. Where are we all? The answer is that being Jewish, while truly a most wonderful thing to be, has never been extremely popular. Aside from murdering us, the nations have shrunk us through assimilation via coercion, enticement, and expulsion in all directions. So finding Jewish traces anywhere on the globe shouldn't surprise us that much. A classic case of this is the 10 tribes of Israel, who were expelled from their land by the Assyrians around 2.5 millennia ago. As one would expect, being exiled was bad for their national identity. They all went lost. Okay. Many Pathani village elders claim this as well. They are the seed of Israel, descended, they say, from Pithan of the tribe of Benjamin. Pithan, a great-grandson of King Saul, is mentioned among a list of hundreds of names chronicling the descendants of the 12 tribes. Nothing more is said of him. Other names of Afghani tribes resemble those of some of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Rabbani, which would be Reuben, Levoni, Levi, Ephrati, Ephraim. Yusuf C means sons of Joseph. The Gadi tribesmen claim that their name is from Gad. Levi as a whole is not a lost tribe. Many Levites still exist among Jews today. Yet it is assumed that many individual Levites were exiled along with the lost tribes. And yeah, because if I remember right, well, I know this for sure, the Levites weren't given land along with the other tribes. Their inheritance was the Lord, but they did have their own cities that were all among all the tribes. So it would make sense that a lot of Levites would have been captured and taken captive and when the Assyrians came. For Jewish customs, the Pathani are quite strict about not shaving their side locks, peyot, which is in accordance with the Torah command, don't shave the sides of your head, Leviticus 19. Their day of rest is Saturday, and Friday towards evening they light candles, which some then cover with a basket, originally to hide their Jewishness? ? They wear a four-cornered garment to which some attach fringes on the corners. Some pray facing Jerusalem, and the Star of David symbol is prevalent in almost every Pathani home. So fascinating. Okay. Did the Taliban come from a lost Israelite tribe? This is from the Jewish Standard, timesofisrael.com. In this fascinating documentary, okay, so yeah, this is talking about a documentary, and it's pretty short. In this fascinating documentary, you'll be taken to the hotbeds of fundamentalism in Afghanistan. Mysteries and clues about the Pathans or Pashtuns people are uncovered. It turns out that this group are actually descendants of King Saul of Israel and Moses. Afghanistan is actually an Israelite name. Afghan was the son of King Saul, which I didn't know until I read this, and I guess I'll just take their word for it. The film points out similarities between the Pathans, Pashtuns, and the Jews. For example, there's a scene of young boys wearing what look like skull caps and reading a Bible. As they pray, they shuffle back and forth. Jewish people do this when they are praying in synagogue with their own prayer books. In another scene, the narrator talks about religious animal sacrifices to God, as the Jews did at the time of Bet Hamikdash. These people dress as the Jewish people dressed during the time of Moses. However, their interpretations of the law of the Ten Commandments differs greatly as well. Everything is taken literally in their Bible. An eye for an eye is really an eye for an eye. So they're not kidding, right? They're serious. Watch the documentary and tell us what you think. What is the documentary? A documentary claims that Pashtuns are descendants of King Saul of Israel and Moses. This will blow your mind. This is from 2015. I don't know. Is this the name of the document? I don't know. But I'll leave the link below in case you want to try and find that if you want to watch it. I'm sure it's a really interesting documentary. Okay, and this is going to be actually the last article that we go through. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Let's see. Change the cursor again. Okay, following the conquest of the northern kingdom by the Assyrians in 721 BC, the 10 tribes were gradually assimilated by other peoples and thus disappeared from history. Nevertheless, a belief persists that one day the 10 lost tribes would be found. Eldad Hadani, for instance, a 9th century Jewish traveler, reported locating the tribes beyond the rivers of Abyssinia on the far side of an impassable river called Sambashan, a roaring torrent of stones that becomes subdued only on the Sabbath, when Jews are not permitted to travel. Manasseh ben Israel, 1604 to 1657, used the legend of the lost tribes in pleading successfully for admission of Jews into England during Oliver Cromwell's regime. Peoples who at various times were said to be descendants of the lost tribes include the Assyrian Christians, the Mormons, of course, the Afghans, the Beta Israel of Ethiopia, the American Indians, and the Japanese. And there's actually, from what I remember, there's a lot more than that in the Wikipedia article that I read, so I'll do a separate video on that. But it is quite stunning. And not to say that it's all true. Of course, some people, they may be wrong about their heritage. It may be that early on there was a tradition because people wanted to be, associated with Israel, and maybe it was all, just a lie from the beginning, but who knows. But I think it's still pretty interesting. Among the numerous immigrants to the state of Israel since its establishment in 1948 were a few who likewise claimed to be remnants of the 10 lost tribes. The descendants of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin have survived as Jews because they were allowed to return to their homeland after the Babylonian exile of 586 BC. All right, so I'm going to go here to the map. You have Israel over here, and then just pretty much just due east. That's where you have Afghanistan. So I don't think that you can make the claim that Afghanistan would be the northern countries, right? This is more like the countries to the side or to the east. But it is still interesting, and I think it makes sense. And just based on what we read, it seems like there really is substantial evidence to support that they would be some of the 10 lost tribes. Not the entirety, but I know that there's a quote, and I'm going to read that in a upcoming video about the main group, how they traveled north, and along the way some of them broke off or they mixed in with the local populations. So we'll go over that, but I really do think that basically the Syrians came, they destroyed the kingdom, took a lot of them captive. I know that there were a lot that still remained, and that there were groups that were led out and went north. And if you look at the map here, if you go north, you go into Turkey, and then possibly over this way, up into Georgia and Russia, or this way, up into Europe. And I think there's a lot to say that much of Europe probably did come, or at least these Israelites that were leaving after the Assyrian conquest probably did come up here and assimilate into these European tribes that would have been over here, and that's almost certainly how Joseph Smith would have been a pure Ephraimite, and who knows like how they were able to keep their bloodlines pure. Obviously, some of them did mix in with the local populations, but maybe there were certain traditions and certain groups that were able to maintain their purity up until a certain point. I don't know. Maybe for a while there were prophets among them that were leading them, and then after that there was apostasy, and so that's why they kind of lost their identity. And that could be the same thing here in Afghanistan. When you read in 3rd Nephi, it talks about how the Lord from time to time will lead people or break off branches from the main tree and take them wherever he will. And that may have happened here in Afghanistan with the Pashtuns, and it seems like things are starting to happen as of this year. This is significant. I think a lot of us already knew that 2020 and 2021 were not typical years, that they're special, that something is going on. specifically in regards to the second coming and things leading up to the second coming. And I'd say that this is a pretty significant development, that now that the Taliban have been able to take the country over again, there's all these people, like I said earlier in the video, there's all these people that no longer want to stay in Afghanistan because they had a taste of freedom. And uh, and so they're leaving. There's a migration that's happening. And not all of them are going to leave, but you have these, what I think are they probably are Israelites that have been here for thousands of years, um, essentially not in exile, but they, away from their true homeland, um, both in Israel and in, not that they would know it, but in the United States and America, and well, the American continent, I guess, both North and South America. But after all these years of staying put right here, we had the war in Afghanistan that went on for 20 years. I was part of that war. I was actually stationed in Bagram Airfield, which is right up here north of Kabul. And yeah, after what happened this year, man, for Afghanistan, that was huge. That's a big part of their history. That was a significant milestone. And so we're just going to have to see what happens, but it seems like the gathering is continuing, both spiritually and temporally. It seems like these people are actually going to be going to their promised land, whether it be in Israel or in the Americas or other places. But I find it interesting. I hope that you do too. All right, so I guess I'll leave it there. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, hit the notification bell, leave your comments, and especially if you have comments with references and sources that I can look up and incorporate in future videos, that would be great. And I'll talk to you guys later.